Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first week of school. I hope you guys are all having a great week. Just a couple of administrative notes here. A lot of people are confused about the online course. You do not have a class to show up to. You literally have a free block. You could always work on AP Psychology, but you could work on other stuff. But as said in the syllabus, when you are have that free period, if it's first and sixth block, the preference is that you leave early or you come late. If you have it during the day, the preference is you're either in my class with me, which is available second and third block, or you're in the library with Mrs. Lincoln. You're not roaming around, you're not in pods, you're not in the cafeteria. Okay, the preference is that you leave campus. So, especially if you have this class scheduled around lunch, it would be nice to take a really nice long lunch for you guys. But feel free to leave campus, which is actually a preference. We just don't want to have 100 kids walking around the building while other people are on class. And quite frankly, that's hopefully why you took this, because you wanted the flexibility in your schedule. You still wanted to take an AP Psychology class, and maybe you couldn't fit it into the time that you wanted to, and enjoy that freedom. Again, it's freedom, it's a privilege. Make sure you don't abuse it, and so be where you need to be, either at home, in the library, or with me. Also, like I said in the syllabus, if you are with me, please, no hall passes, no cell phones. So if you were in my class second and third blocks, which you are welcome to stay there, but once you're there until the bell rings. Okay, let's get down to Unit 1. So this is your first lecture, and I'm going to do these lectures for every week, kind of explain where the week is going. This is what your screen should look like. Now, I want to show you something here. So these are all of my AP Psychology classes, like including the one that actually shows up and we do it in class. So if your screen does not look updated with all of this, send me a quick email and say, hey, you didn't copy all of the work to my courses. So I have to make a course for each individual block, and I want to make sure that you've got all the material that you can find. Okay, so quick navigation, all of your materials are here. All of your upcoming events are over here. Look at, we've got events all the way till September 26th. We are in Unit 1 and 2 right now, so this is the folder right here that you are going to want to look at on a regular basis. Here is your syllabus, so you can see what's going on. Here's an introduction to psychology YouTube video. Please watch that. It's all about the syllabus. And then here's a little cheat sheet on how to do things in Schoology. Okay, so let's get right into Unit 1 and 2, Foundations and Historical Approaches. This is basically an introduction to psychology. Within the folders, it's going to look like this: discussion and assignments, additional resources, tests, prep and tests. Here is your presentation. You can follow along with this video. You can go back and look at it and take some notes. You can do anything you would like, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this presentation with this Google Hangout, just like a lecture in class, hopefully shorter. We're going to start this presentation here. So I thought that was funny, but maybe it's not. But one of the big things about this little keep calm and question everything is that psychology is a science. It forces you to critically think. I want you to question everything, but just because you question everything doesn't mean you don't believe stuff. So we, again, are a science. So if science says violent video games are not good for 4-year-olds because we can measure what effect it has on the brain, then guess what? Your opinion doesn't matter. Violent video games are bad for 4-year-olds because that's what science says, and that's really where science is going. Now, it doesn't mean you don't have to question, the way they collected their data or their sample size or anything like that. But unless you do the science yourself to try to replicate the science, the best understanding of what's going on right now with 4-year-olds and violent video games like halo, et cetera, is that they do damage to the amygdala, which is where we have all of our emotional stuff going on in our brain. We'll get there in Unit 3. And that damage can create emotional problems when they're much older. And that's what science says right now. It's not an opinion. So I start off this class with, what color is a swan? Obviously, the answer seems pretty apparent. The color of a swan is white. Mrs. Hindenau, what are you talking about? Well, that's because we see the swan, and we see the swan white every day. But what happens when I show you a picture of a black swan? You think, nice Photoshop. But the reality of it is, an entire world sees swans as black. They aren't colorblind. They aren't weird. They aren't just seeing the world different. They just live in Australia. So if you assume that all swans are white, how do you prove to somebody that a black swan is in existence? The only way to prove it is to show them evidence that falsifies the first philosophy or the first argument. Okay, so the whole point of this analogy between the white swan and the black swan is that we could observe white swans all day in Michigan. We can see them all the time. And then we make the cognitive mistake of assuming that our perspective is the only perspective out there. But as soon as we see a picture of a black swan, we can no longer claim that all swans are white. Excuse me. Falsification is the only way to know. So we're going to do a lot more about science later on, but here is the quick key features of science. You need empirical evidence, you need objectivity, you need a control. That's really big, especially on the AP. You need to be predictable. You need to test hypothesis. And another key is replication. So we've all heard about the criticism of vaccinations in our society now, and how some people are not vaccinators. And again, you can choose whatever to do with your life. It's up to you, but the science right now, replicated over and over again, 99% of all scientists out there that do the experiments say that vaccines do not cause autism. How do we know this? Because we are in a science community that continually replicates the science. And every time we go back and do the experiments to see if there's a link, the science comes back as there is no link. If we did it once, then it's not science. And that's really what happened with the initial link. The first scientist was out there and he said, I think there's a link between autism and vaccination. He found significant evidence the first time, but then nobody's been able to replicate it. And actually the scientist that came out with the link has actually refuted the science that he did. He's actually stated in public, yeah, that was bad science and there is no link. So the key to science is replication, control groups, evidence, et cetera, et cetera. How do we know that swans are black? Well, most swans in Australia are black swans. Here's an interesting scenario. So a financial wizard writes you a letter and makes a prediction that the stock goes up, and then the stock goes up. Another letter claiming it will be higher at the end of the month comes in your mailbox, and you say, oh my goodness, he's going to be right again, or he's going to be wrong again. And then 1 month later goes by and it goes up again. And then he does this for like 6 months in a row. He predicts that the stock market's going to go up, and you've got, let's say, $10,000 laying around, because every American does, right? The question is should you invest in this guy? Is he a financial wizard? He has predicted the stock market increasing for the last 6 months. I want you to think about that. I'm going to tell you at the end of the video what the answer is and whether or not you should invest. So this semester in general, I want you to be weary. I don't want you to draw conclusions from observations only. So remember, we only observe white swans, but that doesn't mean it's only true. I want you to consider alternative explanations. I don't want you to accept anything at face value. Question. And be aware of perspective. So be aware that, you know, when we look at data and facts, we need people to replicate it so we can like eliminate biases and stuff like that. This leads us to the first discussion board. So this is due on Wednesday at 11:59. Your first post is an individual post every week. Make sure that your posts are, you know, 3 to 5 sentences, 5 to 8 sentences would even be better. There's a rubric posted on Schoology. I will show you once I get to the assignment here. But the big idea of this assignment is that I want you to think about the ethical considerations of experimenting and implementing current scientific thought on human beings. So if there's one good thing about the anti-vaccine movement, is that it questions how we use science on human beings. And so I appreciate that critical thinking that is, you know, in that movement. Unfortunately, I think the science is like completely overwhelming, but there has been times in human history in which science has just, you know, hurt people and it's done damage to people, and we thought we were doing the right thing, but we have really not, because we've done experiments on human subjects. And so there is a little bit of concern about psychology as a science. There's concern about doing experimentation on human beings. Let's take an example of depression. You know, we've got medication for depression now. Is it ethical to, you know, do live experimentation on human beings with antidepressant drugs? That has got to be a consideration. So there's blurring research also in diagnosis and therapy. So in psychology, we like to jump right on new science, and sometimes we diagnose people really quick, and then sometimes we prescribe the drugs really quick. And so we have to be very careful between clinical opportunity and doing damage to human beings who are seeking help from us as psychologists. So we have to gather the knowledge, but also dispensing the knowledge in the real time gets a real tricky. So, you know, sometimes it's best to wait a couple years before you try the next best thing that comes down the pipe with psychology. So we always read these headlines about new research about, you know, obsessive compulsive disorder, or new research about anxiety drugs, or new research about depression and what can cure depression and stuff. And everybody jumps on these headlines in the newspaper, but sometimes we don't read when the replication failures happen. Those don't make headlines. So yeah, new drug that, you know, cures depression. Somebody tried to replicate the drug, does some critical thinking about it, and then all of a sudden we like, nope, that was a fluke. People, you know, the science was flawed. But that replication, that retraction doesn't meet the headlines, and so we have to be a little bit careful about that. So one of the big criticisms of psychology is that there's this overall lack of standards. And so this is an amazing story that you're going to do your first discussion on. It's called My Lobotomy. It's by NPR. It is a story of a man who gets a lobotomy. Just ignore this. I was supposed to take this out. This is for the people that do it in school. So you're not going to worry about all of this. Is going to be next out right there. But this is an amazing story of a man who was lobotomized at 14 years old, I think. And so let's go to your discussion boards and talk about what you're going to do. So right here is your folder. You're going to click on that discussion board link right there. Look at, you'll notice discussion 1 is right here. You're going to click on that. Okay. And your directions are right in here. You're going to listen to the program My Lobotomy and create a post that links this program to Unit 1. Now, I understand your Unit 1 reading is not due until Sunday, but you need to start your readings now. Okay, and I want evidence that you started your readings now. So be sure that you have picked up your textbook and doing your readings. So step 1, you answer these questions. Why is it important to use a scientific method in psychology? Where did the science method go wrong for lobotomies? How do you think the new technology and science discoveries have changed psychology? So I want you to tell me a little bit about lobotomies, and then what do you think and how do you think it's changed psychology? And then after you have posted one, you read 2 other classmates. Now, when you respond, make sure you reply to the thread and don't create another thread. So just reply to the person's statement. Use vocabulary words from Unit 1, number 1. That's what I'm looking for. Are you doing your readings? Can you apply the vocabulary words? Use specific examples from My Lobotomy. Did you listen to the program? Okay, here is your rubric. So make sure your post, and this is the same rubric for every week. So make sure your post is informative. You're using information from class readings, lectures, web resources to support your ideas. Mostly I'm looking for information from the My Lobotomy NPR program and this lecture and your readings from Unit 1. The post is thought-provoking. Provide the class with additional learning, thinking about the information, make connections. You know, you can include aha moments. You can include, oh my goodness, I can't believe this happened to him moments. You can include why questions, like why on earth would we stick an ice pick in somebody's head? You can talk about the doctor. There's just so much. This is a great program. There's so much stuff that you can talk about. But I want you to ask questions and answer them in there. So it's not just about you asking the questions, it's also about you answering the question that you asked to spur some conversation. Obviously, the post has to be appropriate. Please do not troll. Please do not use bad words. Please do not insult people. The responses here, these 3 right here are responses. So your responses are extensive. You kind of contribute to the overall conversation. You go back and forth with the people on the discussion boards. You add to their, you don't just say I agree and that's it. That does not get you any points actually at all on the discussion boards. That would get you a, you know, over here on a 0. Because I agree is not a discussion. It's just a nod. You're like head nodding virtually. So I don't want any head nods. I want you to, you know, use the information and talk to other people on the post. And then completion posts are at least a paragraph. All posts are at least a paragraph. And I look at least. Okay, so at least does not mean, oh, excellent. At least means, you know, you got a 2 or a 3, which is a good. And everything's on time. So your deadlines for discussion boards are Wednesday at 11:59 and Friday at 11:59. And that happens every single week. So put it in your calendar. And then right here is the NPR program. See, there's him. Howard Dully is actually getting the picture of him getting this. You're going to click listen, and you're going to listen it. This is Howard Dully now holding the ice pick. There's lots of additional pictures. This is just an extremely fascinating story. In 1968, can you even believe that? Okay. So, and when you go, you're just going to write blah, blah, blah. There's spell check. If you're worried about spell check, you can bold stuff. If you'd like to bold, make sure that I see that you're using vocabulary. And so you bold the words that are in vocabulary words from the unit or underline them. Then you can do that. Once you push post, it'll show up. And then there will be a comment and reply button underneath that you can look for. And what's going to happen is this is going to just explode right here. There's going to be, you know, 60 of you discussing My Lobotomy. You are going to be discussing this stuff with other people that are taking the in-class online sociology class. So if you've noticed up here how I navigate, this is called a breadcrumb or bread trail or something like bread thread or something like that in the technology world. But this is folders. And so you can go backwards to each folders. So if I just wanted to go back to unit 1 and 2, I can just click on that. If I want to go back to whole psychology, I click on that. If you use this arrow, it shows you all this other stuff. So I'm going to go back to the presentation. Just give me a second here. Where was I? Doo-doo, swans, swans, swans. Okay, so yeah, don't stop questioning. Here's the formal definition of psychology now that I've gotten your first assignment under your belt. So it's a formal study of mind systematic approach to understanding and curing mental conditions. The goal is to understand humans with a secondary goal of treatment of behavior. So first we're understanding and then we're treating abnormal behavior. Once we get into this psychology course, the concept of abnormal gets really interesting because who gets to decide what's abnormal psychology and what's not? So we have to be really careful when we talk about people's mental disabilities or mental abnormalities, because we don't really want to marginalize people. You know, for example, somebody with depression. Is it really abnormal to get depression? Or is it a human condition that we can, you know, treat and understand human behaviors and help people through? So, you know, at some point in time, it's good to have anxieties because, you know, or depressions, because your life, you know, is just representing what's happening in your life. So in general, the psychology is truly a mystery of the mind. I mean, I hope you enjoy this subject matter as much as I do. I might go full screen here for you. Understanding the universe. So another thing that we need to understand is that we live in a time in which we have this incredible industry evolving of neuroscience. I mean, we used to just study psychology and not have functional MRIs and CAT scans and PET scans and all of this technology that lets us, you know, dive right into the brain. So the new trend in psychology is taking everything that we've learned about psychology and marrying it with neuroscience now. I always say that if I could go back to college, I would go back and get a degree in neuroscience. It's just fascinating. We cannot deny the role of evolution. Now, I know some people have a problem with this term evolution, but psychologists do not. And so we do not dismiss the idea that the brain has evolved over thousands and thousands of years, and that the modern human brain is much different than the brain of 2,000 years ago, or the brain of 15,000 years ago, or the brain of 50,000 years ago. And so the role of evolution in the brain and the structures of the brain is very important in psychology. This we will talk about a lot in Unit 3. There's this like symphony of realities that goes on in psychology. It's like, you know, we are studying the brain, but we're using our brain to study the brain. So how do we, you know, match that? I mean, how do we even sit down and think about the mysteries of the brain by using our brain? So we have all of these realities, we have all these biases that go into the study, and we really have to be mindful. There is also this huge diversity within psychology that, you know, there's so many different fields of psychology. There's like environmental psychology, which studies how we, you know, interact with the physical environment of our lives. There's occupational psychology, which is, you know, studying of psychology in the workforce. There's, you know, obviously child psychology, which is how the child brain develops. So there are so many opinions and science and stuff out there. This class is just a broad, you know, eagle-eye view of what goes on in psychology. So the first thing, TED Talk that I would like for you to watch is Sarah's TED Talk here. It is fabulous. Ignore this. This was a discussion board that I've done before and a quiz that I've done before, but we're not going to do that. I just want you to watch this video. So make sure you watch that video. I'll post it on an announcement and on your calendar too. Have it, you know, watched by, you know, Thursday, and maybe we'll share some notes that you've taken on it. We're not going to watch it right now. I'm going to skip that too. Okay, we're going to go to the science of psychology and the early psychology. Actually, this video is getting pretty darn long, so I've probably lost you. So I'm going to do another video of the psychology, the history of psychology. So this is a good introduction of what we're going to do. For this week, make sure that you do your discussion boards on my lobotomy. make sure that you watch this TED Talk right here. I'm going to post a link to that TED Talk also, so you can easily find it for assignments to do. I would highly suggest when you watch this TED Talk to take some notes. She talks about the development of the teenage brain, which is pretty fascinating. So if you have any questions, just give me a message. I'll show you what to do with a message if you want to get a hold of me. There's this little envelope right up there. See me and Mr. Johnson's going to help us. You just create a new message and you type. I wonder if I'll show up. Carrie. Nope. Yep, I will. So don't. Oh my gosh. Carrie Hindedall. Say subject, hey, I'm really confused about week 1. And then tell me your confusion and then send it to me and I'll respond. Okay. Also feel free to stop by and say hi to me during passing time. I hope you have a fabulous, fabulous first week of school. Wednesday, your first discussion board is done. Sunday, Unit 1 notes are done and turned in. And Friday, your responses. Should I talk about the notes really quick? Maybe I should. One more thing, it's solely at the end of this video and I'm sorry, but let's talk about how you are going to turn in your notes. So right here, you have discussion boards and required assignments, Unit 1 notes right here. You're going to take it on Google Docs and turn it in here. Be sure to turn it in. Do not just share them with me. They must be turned in. Or you can take it in a notebook and record a video. Snapchat works well. Just flip through your notebook slowly so I can see that you've completed your readings. Or you can take it on Word and just upload the document here. Okay, here's the criteria for your notes. Being on time. Yes, they were on time, 1 to 2 days late, really late, not turned in as a 0. Notes are complete. You've taken it from the beginning of the unit chapter to the end. Okay, so you've got Unit 1 that is due on Sunday. And I need to see, especially if you're doing a video, that you have taken vocabulary word definitions for the entire unit. All major vocabulary is included. Major vocabulary and notable people are included in your notes. I can see them clearly. If you're doing a video on handwritten notes, make sure that they're underlined or bold, highlighted so I can see them. And then, of course, your notes are legible, yes or no. Okay, so what's going to happen is that you're going to really want to put your notes right here in comments. Please do not do that. When you are a student, you will see a submission thing up here. I don't have it, but it's going to be right here, a little button that says submit. That's where you're going to submit your stuff. Okay, if you are going to do it on Google Docs, there is a really awesome thing that goes on. You can connect your Google Docs through this app thing. And so you're going to install an app and then you're going to pick Google Drive. And then once you pick Google Drive, it'll come up and look like this. And look at, I've got like all of this stuff that I do. I got all my folders. I got my kids' folders. I can turn in their work for you guys. And so you just click it and then you click import file. Okay. Another thing, if you're confused with Schoology and how to use it, go on YouTube. There are so many videos on how to use Schoology. And so if you're like, I have no idea how to hand something in on Schoology, you go to YouTube and you say, I have no idea how to hand stuff in on Schoology. And then a really cool video comes up that's a little bit as boring, almost as boring as this one. And again, navigate back to your Schoology page here. This is a great little thing. Okay. Everything's right here. All of your upcoming. Okay, email me if you have any questions. Have a great week, guys.